Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're gonna have a kind of a unique video where we actually break down two coins in one video, right? We're gonna be breaking down XRP and Hbar because their price action is very similar. And ladies and gentlemen, they are under kind of the same narrative. And of course, XRP is known to be a bank coin. And of course, Hbar is a huge hitter and will be a huge hitter this cycle. Now, if you do want individual videos for something like XRP or Hbar, let me know. All right, let me know. Of course, views, likes, engagements, are an indicator of if people want this type of content or if they would just simply prefer something else. Anyways, let's jump into the XRP price action, and then in a minute or two, we will dive into the Hbar price action. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we can see a very huge support zone right over here. Right? XRP had a huge support zone at around $2. And at one point we did get manipulated, right? Early April, it took out multiple weeks of liquidity and ultimately in the end kind of, formed a reverse head and shoulders, right? We have a shoulder over here, a head over here, and shoulder over here, which is one of the strongest, I repeat, it's one of the strongest price actions patterns you can have. It really is. So, and it's doing this at $2, right? It's doing this at $2. We can see something like XRP, right? Struggled for a long time, right? We had this nice pump in 2017, right? Boom, it created an institutional candle. Then of course, boom, over here, we tapped out, right? The top was here because obviously, ladies and gentlemen, there was issues with the lawsuit. And ladies and gentlemen, we did tap into a nice weekly institutional candle. Perfect manipulation. And then we were, going sideways for a very long time, ranging between, let's say, 35 cents to 65 cents consistently before we eventually burst it up. Now, here is the deal, people, right? This is kind of like a ping pong. Think about crypto like a ping pong, right? We went from kind of just, going sideways, pinging sideways to eventually bursting up, right? Tapping into the all-time high, boom, right over here, near the all-time high, right? We pinged off of that zone, boom, we went back down, we were ranging, and now we're looking to actually take the all-time high. Is it a coincidence that we did go down to a perfect zone of right here, right? Look at this. Look at this beautiful support, right? It is on top of the last previous cycle high, right? This was the high in 2021, right? Sorry, just kind of hyper, the caffeine, it got to me, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, 2021, we had this top over here and we created a support on top of it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking to be going up higher and higher, right? Our next relative zone is going to be $3.40. After that, ladies and gentlemen, right, I do believe there's going to be probably a minor sell-off or at least a little bit of slow movement. Not too long though, maybe a few short weeks at most. And then, ladies and gentlemen, once we actually do start going higher and higher, listen, we're going to be going above this huge zone, And here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. On the smaller levels, something like this, you can just tell it's consolidation, right? You can tell. But at the end of the day, right, when price wants to break above a huge zone, everything from 2017, all of this sideways movement down here, the 2021 pump and all of the sideways movement down here, and this pump over here, and then all of the sideways movement that we had now is going to count as accumulation. So we will be actually bursting to the upside very aggressively. If we go and look at something like XRP and its price point, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that boom, we're at 175 billion market cap, more or less, right? So if we wanted to 10x, we'd have to be at 1.75 billion. Now, I don't think we're going to 10x this cycle necessarily, right? Unless, of course, we go absolutely crazy, but we will obviously update you on that if we do. However, I do think something like a 4x, 3 to 4x is more than likely, right? Because if we were to 4x from here, that would be roughly, 400 billion market cap plus the 75 times 4, which is going to be an extra 300 billion, right? So we would be looking at 700 billion market cap for a $12 XRP, which for me, ladies and gentlemen, is more than realistic, right? It's more than realistic. So that $10 XRP is on the line, right? I know some of you guys have been holding for a very, very long time. And ladies and gentlemen, trust me, this cycle is going to reward the XRP holders just as long as you sell, okay? Anyways, let's talk about Hbar, right? Hbar. Now, once again, if you guys do want separate videos for, coins like this, then of course, let me know. But we can see, ladies and gentlemen, right? We can see Hbar was in a similar boat where it was kind of just consolidating for a while. Ever since 2022 up until late 2024, it exploded, right? It did explode. But what happened after that, ladies and gentlemen, right? We exploded, then we had a little bit of a sell-off, but we did it on top of a very, very key support. We see we have held the key support. And what do we do? Well, we broke structure, right? Because this was practically the last relevant high in May, in the beginning of May. And we can see last week we did create a higher high, right? We have this high and this high is clearly higher. So what do I expect next for Hbar? Well, probably just for it to cool down just a little bit, not too much, maximum go down a couple of percent to then continue to go up higher and higher, okay? To then continue to go up higher and higher, boom, going into this big zone over here of, let's just say 35, 36 cents, okay? Boom, you gotta remember, it does need time to build up, but overall, the momentum is very, very bullish. Once we kind of get to this 45-cent zone, then of course, I expect for us to take out all-time highs of roughly 56, 57 cents, probably sell off just a little bit, but more likely kind of do something similar to XRP, where we kind of go sideways to build up for the big final rally. Now, Hbar was one of those coins that I thought could have easily went to 40 billion market cap this cycle, right? Hedera. So if we look, 40 billion market cap is a 10x from here. $1 is what we have been talking about for a very, very long time with a coin like Hbar. Now, if we do get a really great cycle, then I actually could see this even being double that. I could see Hbar hitting a $2 mark, and that would be 80 billion market cap. Guys, you have to remember something like Cardano hit a high market cap last cycle, right? It hit 95 billion, right? So there's been a few coins that have hit that type of zone, and Hbar is a contender to be in, in that area of 80 to 100 billion market cap. It sounds crazy now, and it might require a double pump, right? But it is possible. It's not full moon boy. It's not like crazy prediction where I'm like $10 Hbar. You know what I'm saying? It's not that type of prediction. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think. To be honest, I've been super high on Hbar for a while, and I did think it was going to at least hit $1. Like I said again, it could easily hit $1.50, 60 billion market cap for a coin like this is more than realistic in my eyes. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about Hbar and XRP today. If you guys do want separate, more dedicated, more in-depth videos about these two, whether it's XRP or Hbar, let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.